you are a manifestation of Jewish values.
I actually want to talk to you about this. I was, I'm not sure what your take is on it, but I was very surprised that you managed to continue talking to him, because he was very difficult to talk to. I was getting offended on your behalf.
So thank you. So one of the things that surprised me with that conversation is Rajiv prides himself on being an anti-racist activist. And when you're looking at the world through a sphere of here are oppressed people, here are oppressors, there's few in the last 100 years, few acts of persecution that compare to the Holocaust. Now obviously Jews don't have a monopoly on oppression of being victims. There's the Rwandan genocide, there's been many horrific events.
It's a human trait.
Yeah, but to hear it going to such lengths to try and deny the fact that there is anti-Jewish racism in the world, when there are just such tangible and brutal examples in living memory.
That's it. I didn't see, like, his questioning for me wasn't sincere, and it's a conversation I could have with him, but I don't think it would be productive for the same reason.
I think it's more identity politics more than anything.
Something I've got no interest in.
Yeah. I think he was defending it. He felt he had to defend two schools. He had to defend the black community, because I was saying there's anti-Semitism within the black community, and I was saying there's anti-Semitism within the left. So he felt, because they're two aspects of his identity, where they converted, because it seemed like I was attacking them, he felt compelled to defend. I think that's one of the dangers of modern politics. They're so tribal, and so we don't see racism within our own camps. We just see it as the other. So if you speak to a Labour supporter, they will tell you how Tories are murdering millions of people with austerity.
Yeah.
And if you speak to a Tory, they'll tell you that Labour are the most anti-Semitic party since the Nazis.
So
and there's no...
I understand you. I just the thing I wanted to ask you about this is more meta. Have you talked to him before?
A few times. We actually once, this when I first met you, we were talking to him about race.
It was around here somewhere. Yeah, I remember that one. You see, because for me, I've noticed the man himself and other people use very irritating tactics when discussing that are completely, from my understanding, completely disingenuous towards discussing anything of value. It's a simple, you define this for me. Give me this example. Give me a time when someone did this. That's not an investigation into a topic. So what I want to ask you is, when that occurs, why don't you shut it down as a non-legitimate discussion? You know what I mean? Because I was getting really irritated watching it on your behalf. You should have just said them, like, that's it, man. Especially when somebody continues to tell you, calm down, calm down. It's intensely patronizing.
So I think in this generation, because of the internet, people will build an entire philosophy on facts which are unfactual. And so take Rothschild's conspiracies, that there's this clique of bankers that control the world.
Right.
And from there they'll get to New World Order. From New World Order they'll get to aliens from outer space. And they literally built this entire philosophy, and the foundations are built on nonsense. And the only way to counter that is to actually get them to come over to the facts. So when faced with Rajiv's questioning, his questions, I believe, are coming from a sincere place.
You think so?
To a degree.
That's generous.
But I think he's built a philosophy on faulty foundations, and so I think there's a duty to try and correct those. Otherwise, what's the point of me coming here? Everyone's views on Israel, as an example, which is the main reason I come here, is completely one-sided. They've seen a pro-Palestinian narrative and completely oblivious to everything else. And so the only way I can counter that is by presenting them with ideas and philosophies they maybe haven't encountered before.
Of course. All right, great, cool. Let's go for the question I was going to originally ask. I've been asking a few people here in the park, so it's a kind of a simple one, but I think maybe we can get into some interesting depth, hopefully, is just about spiritual belief. So, for example, you're obviously ascribed to Judaism. My questions are sincere. Like, you were born into a Jewish family, and you were taught, I don't know how to say it, taught Judaism from that.
I was taught Hegel and Marx from a young age. My parents are communists.
You're joking.
They believe religion is the opiate of the masses. I come from a line of rabbis.
All right.
And then my grandfather abandoned it all and became a hardcore communist.
Oh, really?
Was a councillor, I believe, a councillor in the East End. Like, he was full on.
All right.
And so my
Interesting.
father was raised going to factories, speaking on soapboxes, trying to educate the proletariat and bring them to communism.
I see.
So I was raised within this environment, and it wasn't until much later in life that I actually became religious. I became religious in my late 20s. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm a little bit older now.
That's fine. Very interesting. Cool. So at that time, did you identify with communism? Using that language. God.
So I identified as being, I wouldn't say I was a communist, I would say I was on the left, politically very much on the left. Now I reject the left-right binary because I believe it's an absurd proposition. Like, when you look at how it divides more along identitarian type politics, so as an identity politics, sorry.
Yeah.
As an example, abortion tends to be a right-wing position, and pro-choice becomes a left-wing position, but there's moral arguments for both, so why should it be divided along the left-right binary?
Okay,
and so I don't like the tribes that left-right politics has created, so...
Okay, great, okay, cool. So do you think, just as a side question, do you think that introduction to radical left-wing thinking and communism, does it still influence you? Does it influence your take on other things in the world?
I think I'd be a fool to say it hasn't. I think no longer I'm on the left, but having gone the best part of my younger years being educated with left-wing values in a left-wing household, I think it would be very hard for me to say that hasn't shaped and influenced how I think today.
Okay, great, cool. So, you said that you came to it in your you said early or late 20s?
Late 20s,
sometime.
Yeah.
You came to it. What caused that? If there was a cause you could identify.
So, what took me to religion isn't the path that takes most people to religion. It wasn't an epiphany, it wasn't I saw the light. It was a gradual journey which began with my family forgetting what it was to be Jewish. And so Hitler tried to obliterate the Jews, and in a way my family were a continuation of, not that there's any comparison to them to Hitler, but he wanted to obliterate us physically. My family helped, they forgot what it was to be Jewish, and they just wanted to be like, to be part of the people, to assimilate into wider society. They knew very little. They didn't know the difference between a Hasidic Jew and a Reformed Jew. And so for me, it was about exploring that ancestral, what was it that Hitler tried to destroy? What was it that in every generation people have tried to stop us from doing? And then what responsibility do I have in this generation if I'm not doing what so many people before have tried to destroy?
Okay,
so that's what took me to religion.
Great, okay, you just got it there. So it was maybe a reflection upon existential threats to it that led you to coming back to it to keep it alive, something like that?
So that was the start. But then as you explore the religion, you find aspects. So my understanding of religion, and I don't mean to speak ill of any Christians, but was very Christian. I went to a Church of England school growing up, as most, I remember them singing hymns. I actually know the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
And so my understanding of religion was very Christian. And when I started exploring Jewish philosophy, it was worlds apart from Christianity.
Okay, so just to reconfirm, so that you were seeing you wanted to keep Judaism alive within your line, so to speak. Okay, great, that's cool. So, another question I have for you is, what value do you get personally, if that could be defined, from your belief in Judaism?
I'd say it's more than the belief in Judaism. So if you go to any Orthodox Jew's household, what you'll notice is you'll have an entire, in most cases, unless they can't afford, you'll have an entire wall to wall with books. And what are all these books? All these books from basically self-improvement. So every aspect of your life, there are rabbis for generations and generations that have given considerable thought to each aspect of how you interact with the world, how you interact with other people, and so that I don't think there's an aspect of my world, my existence, which isn't influenced by Jewish philosophy.
I see. So that's an interesting thing I was not aware of. So these like self-help, like you described, it's from a religious Jewish perspective.
Yes,
as well.
Religious, but I would say that religious Jewish values shape the West. That you are a manifestation of Jewish values. And what do I mean by that?
Well, I understand the line of thought you're going down on, but I would care to disagree.
I'm saying there's definitely other influences, but it's not a coincidence that all these movements for liberation, whether it's women, whether it's gay rights, whether all these the emancipation of slaves, even to socialism, it's not a coincidence that they came from Judeo-Christian nations, because they were influenced by this approach, this way of thinking. It wasn't.
Maybe I don't agree with those. Though.
Yeah, you might not agree with
maybe not. But anyway, okay, I got you.
But
just to keep the labels out of it.
Yeah.
So I was asking you about what personal value do you gain from it, and then you were saying about it has all these different schools of thought that cover every aspect, more or less, or whatever, of human life. So you've read many of those books, I imagine, then.
Some of them, not many.
Right. Okay. So, but if you could be, if possible, I'm just genuinely, if you like.
So when you say what personal value, do you mean like in a sense of what you gain from it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of a different way of looking at religion from a Jewish perspective. We don't look at it as like something that you gain or don't gain. This, as far as I understand it anyway, it's a question of whether something's true or not.
Right. No, I understand. I understand that.
We believe, well, you know, in our tradition that obviously the knowledge is the truth is also beneficial.
Right.
You know, in the same way that if you look through Western, you know, the whole Western philosophical canon, there's this idea that truth and knowledge is inherently beneficial.
Right. Okay. No, I understand.
And that actually, in my opinion, that springs in part from the Jewish influence.
Okay.
As Joe was saying.
That's fine. Good. Although I do want to kind of push the point, because I'm simply interested in whether or not it's true or not. I'm interested in if people follow a certain school of philosophy or school of thought or way of living, what you could call it tangible, real-world social application does that give you?
I'll give you a very, very concrete one. Some of the biggest philanthropists in the world are Jewish. Jews are commanded to give.
No, but I'm interested in you.
I'm giving you.
Right.
Jews are commanded to give. I'm actually one of the biggest philanthropists in the world. And Jews give between 10 and 20% of their money that they earn.
Gives a lot to charity. It doesn't like to talk about it.
And so what I was trying to say with that, there are real world examples, concrete, where people's lives are enriched.
Aye.
Be it through values, be it through material form. There are many, many ways, and it's like I think you can pick any philosophy, from communism to Nazism, where those that are practicing it will be able to demonstrate where there is value in what they do. That doesn't mean that everything within that philosophy is good, but very few people would adhere to a philosophy which they don't believe has meaningful.
Maybe I can reframe my question. I mean, that's fine. I just something else I'm trying to get at is in your day-to-day life, there are certain, I suppose, ways of thinking or practices.
So I'll give you an example. Lashon Hara.
That you like, that you appreciate, that give you real-world value.
There's a concept called Lashon Hara, which is you can't speak evil of other people.
Okay.
And so every single Jew that I know, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but myself doesn't gossip. They try not to speak ill of other people. They try their best to think before they speak when it comes to embarrassing other people. Judaism teaches that embarrassing somebody is almost like it's akin to murdering them, because the damage that you do.
I can see that. Yeah.
And so there's a very
murdered their reputation.
Oh yeah, I was seeing that in a video in a thing over there today.
Yeah. Ask a couple of questions. You know, you talk about the whole world, and Jewish people are the most generous in the whole world.
No, I didn't say Jews are the most generous, but I just said that amongst the biggest philanthropists are Jews. You also find Muslims in there, and it tends to be religious people more than atheists give philanthropy.
Yeah. I mean, I think most
and your last point was also similar to Jewish and Christian and Muslim people as well, right? It wasn't just specific to Jewish.
No, absolutely.
No, I mean, there's sociological data which backs up the idea that religious people donate more to charity than non-religious.
Yes. So I'm trying to get to this is if, let's say, for example, before you went to Judaism, is there a qualitative difference between your life then and your life now in terms of what you gain from the subscription to the belief?
My life is more stable. I've got a better job. I have hopefully a very happy marriage. Hopefully my wife agrees with this as she watches it.
Just like fun.
She'll be the one screaming in the comments. It's brought real stability and personal growth, and I would imagine you'll find that mirrored in most religious communities. I'll give you an example. When I first moved to London, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
every single weekend, a stranger would invite me, a Jewish person would invite me to eat with them on the Sabbath. I had never experienced, I come from a working class village in the north of England, I'd never experienced kindness like that. Sikhs do the same, I'm sure it's the same within the Muslim community, but there are real concrete examples of where people's lives are enriched personally.
Community connection.
Yeah. So we have a system. It's something that's called the Gemach system.
Yes.
So, for example, when I got married, we were able to. There are people who will have in their house. They'll have 100 wine glasses that they'll make available. They'll go out and they'll buy them, and they'll make available, and they'll say, okay, I'll charge you maybe £50 deposit. They'll deliver them to the venue, and obviously, if you break something, you have to pay for the breakages. But they'll loan them to you.
Right. Okay.
And the same with.
I've got a friend point. I've got a friend of mine. He's more affluent than me, and he decided to buy a Jaguar, so that when people got married, they'd have a nice car to go to the wedding. And so he's got some money. You're thinking he drives it personally. He puts on the chauffeur cap, and he drives them in his Jaguar, which he's only got for weddings. So I mean, so these are examples.
Okay, I understand. So can I ask a different type of question then?
Please.
So let's say, because it's a religion and it's talking about God and prophets and afterlife and such things like this, so I would say it's intrinsically linked to the existential questions that humans like to like to ask themselves. So does this belief system help you with those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's actually a book, it's not written by me, but it's a book called God, Man and Nietzsche.
God, Man and Nietzsche?
Yeah. It's by, I've forgotten the name of the author. He's a philosophy lecturer at Yeshiva University in New York.
Oh, right.
And he explores where all the themes of contemporary Western philosophy occurred in Jewish sources. So, for example, there was I think, how long was it? It was a 2-year debate in the Sanhedrin, which was the Jewish parliament before the fall of the previous Jewish state 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they had a 2-year debate on whether it was better to be born or not to be born.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that.
And in the end,
legitimate question.
In the end, they concluded it would be better not to be born, but since we're born, we have to make the most of it.
I would say it's better to be born. But anyway, in any case, so what about yourself? About existential questions to do with life and death and who we are and what we are. Before you came to Judaism, you maybe asked these questions, I imagine. And it gave you answers to it?
Yes, but on a surface level. So I think, like most people, I was spoon-fed what Christianity was, and I was spoon-fed what atheism was, and there was a very, very surface-level understanding.
Okay.
So most Orthodox Jews, as an example, subscribe to the Big Bang Theory, they subscribe to evolution. Obviously, within any religious community, there's dissenting opinions.
Yeah,
but the mainstream believe in science.
Okay.
But from my very basic understanding was, if you were religious, you can't really believe in science because the two aren't compatible, because that's what I was taught at school and that's what was taught from my parents. And so I think when you start questioning, and you've come to it from a different, I believe, are you atheist or agnostic? Or?
I prefer no labels.
No
but
label.
The clearest one would be agnostic, as I think it's the most honest position.
Yeah.
But
whatever. And so I would imagine, although you're agnostic, you've probably done an awful lot of reading, because you're asking these questions, reading around this area from a religious to an atheist, and explored these big questions.
I try to read as much as I can.
Most people don't. Most people, in my experience, they will tell you that religion is responsible for all the problems in the world, and obviously evolution happened and the Big Bang happened. And the minute you start scratching that and ask them to explain, well, what is the Big Bang Theory? They fall apart, and it's as much a leap of faith as it is for a religious person.
If you're not knowledgeable about it.
And I think the only difference, obviously, if you're not knowledgeable, I think the only difference between
there's very few people who are knowledgeable of both sides. There's only probably a handful of people in the world who are equally knowledgeable in matters of religion and science.
Yeah, I mean, I would say spirituality, matters of spirituality. Yeah.
What do you mean by that? What does spirituality mean?
For me, it would mean to have some sort of, not imagination, a sort of conception of other possibilities than what we can directly perceive. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
The possibilities of higher beings, of afterlives, of other realms of existence. For me, this is an idea of spirituality. That's how I use the word personally. Yeah. And I would say religions maybe can be a formalized way of looking at a certain way of understanding spirituality. I'm not disrespecting religions. I'm saying that's my understanding of it. There we go. So, one more question, and that's my kind of thing done. I mean, if our people want to talk, no borders, and if you want to continue talking, is what's the most, if you could say, what's the most valuable thing you get about your spiritual belief? What's its most enriching aspect for you personally?
So I can give it in someone else's words rather than my own. So the story of Hillel. And somebody came to one of our rabbis and said, if you can teach me everything about Judaism while I'm standing on one leg, I'll convert and become a Jew. If you can teach me the entire Torah. Well, and the rabbi responded, treat others as you wish to be treated. The rest is a commentary on that. And I think for me, that really is when it comes down to it, there are some religions that focus very much on the world to come. If you do X, Y, and Z, you'll be rewarded in the afterlife.
Right.
Judaism is actually, if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll make this world a better place. And the focus is on what we call Olam Hazeh, which is making this world a better place.
I see. Okay, and that makes sense. If that's the most valuable thing, that's good. Oh, cool. Well, I'll conclude my chat there. It sounds nice, man.